It's widely accepted that the best version of horror adventure classic Resident Evil 4 is right here on the Nintendo Wii. Its superior motion aim, untouched GameCube visuals, and all content from the PS2 version make it the most all-encompassing way to play. On its own, RE4 Wii sold about 2 million copies. Now that is playing with power. Capcom, being the innovators that they are, asked the obvious question: how can we do this again? How do we make another RE4 Wii edition? We're gonna put Dead Rising on the Wii. It can barely run 10 enemies on screen. You want to put 600 zombies? Enter Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. You ever just see or hear the title of something and think, what'd you do that for? So this game is one where I played it for about an hour back in 2009 and was like, okay, I have some more RE5 to play, so next time. And then there wasn't a next time. Until now. In the year 2025, I have finally played Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. And what I have to say about it might surprise you. Who am I kidding? You will be surprised, because this game transcends the idea of a simple port job. Have you ever been to your local mall and suddenly received a text informing you that all of your precious online orange juice orders have been stolen? Do you want this horrible situation to stop once and for all? Well, that's where Incogni comes in. Cybersecurity is definitely important in this day and age. Did you know hundreds of companies and malicious thieves are all collecting your data right now without your permission? Your legal name, phone number, and home address are all floating around amongst the queen bees of the internet, waiting for some not very fantastic data brokers to come snatch it up. Ever get a bunch of spam calls or junk emails? Those, my friends, would be data brokers. A great way to get ahead of all of this is Incogni's state-of-the-art data removal system. When you sign up to the service, you'll probably be blown away with how many matches will come up featuring your personal information. I know that's how I felt. But I was also shocked at how lightning fast Incogni was able to take it all down. Over the years, I've gotten tons of annoying phone calls and spam emails trying to sell me things that don't matter at all. There have also been a few moments where things got a little scary, where someone was able to get my phone number and be an annoying idiot that way. Having Incogni remove the potential of things like that ever happening again is a real weight lifted off my shoulders. If having that weight lifted off of your shoulders is something that you're interested in, then go to incogni.com/spherehunter and use code SPHEREHUNTER to get an exclusive code of 60% off. That's incogni.com/spherehunter to get 60% off. I don't think I've ever played a port of a game that so successfully felt like a fan mod overhaul project as this does. Playing RE4 Wii right before this title will feel as natural as marathoning 4 jugs of orange juice. This game has basically all of what RE4 Wii had going on, but before we talk about that, I may as well clear the air and talk about the Dead Rising-ness of this quote-unquote Dead Rising game. So like the original, you still play as Frank West, facing off against hordes of zombies. Well, it's more like handfuls of zombies, in Willamette Parkview Mall, rescuing people, leveling up, and enjoying the best mall music I've ever heard. Frank moves with the exact same over-the-shoulder tank controls you saw in RE4, 180 quick turn included. I had to do a triple take not processing seeing Frank West of all characters hit such a smooth Resident Evil quick turn. God damn. The motion aim from RE4 Wii is back and as tight and fun as ever, blasting away at zombos, cultists, and psychos with pinpoint, almost unfair accuracy. Landing careful shots on enemies will stun them, either headshots or kneecaps as you'd imagine. You can even follow up with big melee attacks, just like Leon. What makes Frank's melees a little different is he isn't just shoulder checking the undead. He's also using some of his held items to deliver these flashy hand-to-hand moves. If you've got a baseball bat, for example, well, cartoonishly wind that Wiimote and send packs of undead flying. Like Leon, dodging, vaulting, and jumping are now context-sensitive actions, which was the hardest thing to wrap my brain around, having spent nearly 20 years playing OG Dead Rising. Oh my god. It is very weird seeing a waggle dodge prompt ripped straight out of RE4 on screen in a Dead Rising game just to make me move out of the way of Carlito's sniper fire. What'll really confuse returning DR1 players is Wii's emphasis on guns over melee. In the original game, you had an on-the-fly inventory of whatever you can get your hands on. While there are melee implements similar to those you'd find in OG, you can only hold one at a time. Melee weapons are classified as sub-weapons. They're like a semi-permanent melee option that accompanies your permanent guns. So instead of carrying around 10 handguns or 3 Uzis, Frank actually reloads the firearms. You also get a classic grid-based Resident Evil inventory for all your items. Ammo and cash drop from enemies, and you can really carry a surplus of this stuff around. Why did they call it chop till you drop? They should have called it gun till there's fun. There is technically a third type of weapon that uses inventory space. These are more special use weapons like the fire extinguisher and saw blades. Using the extinguisher pushes enemies on the ground non-lethally. This is handy for getting zombies off survivors without hurting them. It also acts like a gun, so you can actually refill it with additional fire extinguishers. The saw blades come in packs, unlike the original game, and throwing them really rockets them into orbit. They just go soaring into space. There are a bunch of weapons with special abilities like these, and I feel the redesigning of these specific types of items really helps keep the game's combat interesting in this now more focused version of the game. The RE4 mechanics don't stop there. You should have seen my face at Frank lamenting breaking his blacktail pistol. I was even more surprised seeing Jesse give Frank the literal silver ghost. You know, the handgun Leon Kennedy got custom made as a memento to the day that changed his life forever. An almost cursed weapon made to honor a man he sadly couldn't save in Raccoon City. Yeah, Frank just has that now. The most unhinged thing about this port is, after fighting Cletus, the gun shop owner, Frank can actually save this man, and he literally becomes a merchant for you. He just goes straight back to work selling and fixing guns during a zombie apocalypse. I repeat, this game has a merchant. What is going on here? Cletus just killed an innocent living human being, and Frank is like, hey, can you, fix my gun? Buying anything from Cletus results in a laugh so nasty, even the merchant would recoil. Jesus. Cletus actually sells the rest of RE4's arsenal, believe it or not. We're reunited with the Red 9, still clanging away as it does. Both rifles come equipped with their cool reloads. It's insane, they just reuse the same animations. All 3 of Leon's shotguns rack through crowds of deadheads. And finally, both Magnums, Killer 7 included, as well as the TMP, are back in their full glory. Every piece you blast away with performs as you'd expect. Again, you're literally just playing RE4 with these guns equipped. If you haven't played this game or RE4 Wii, I can't stress enough how good using the Wiimote is from a minute-to-minute gameplay perspective. Dead Rising Wii having this aiming system helps it out a lot in the long run. And to be honest, I think I unironically love this game. Well, I guess now would be the perfect time to talk about some things that aren't as lovable. The 2 most iconic and recognizable features that made Dead Rising uniquely stand out from the pack, photo taking and the game's global countdown timer, are nowhere to be seen in Chop Till Ya Drop. Taking pictures of your mall adventures was pretty important, seeing as you're playing as a photojournalist. Picture taking wasn't necessary to succeeding or progression, but it added a layer to Frank's character and the game's loop. You got experience points for the genre of photos taken, and in some cases could come up with some really clever or funny scenarios to net XP gains. It added to the fantasy of going crazy in a zombie-filled mall. Now you just don't do any of that. Even the helicopter photo shoot at the start is gone. The global timer is a little more controversial, as most video game enjoyers would rather have infinite time to enjoy their games, right? I completely understand that, but having the timer in Dead Rising created a lot of the game's tension and horror. Having limited time to decide which cases to investigate made the game feel more like an experience that you can infinitely replay, rather than a standard laid-out action game. And with no global timer comes 2 more pretty big changes, and that's the actual opt-in quest system and the game's overall structure. What I mean by opt-in is that everyone's favorite phone caller, Otis, now gives you missions to save various survivors personally. He no longer calls you out in the field, you just talk to him in the security room. fleshing out and making that area feel even more like a home base. Each quest is presented to you in a drop-down menu, making the game feel even gamier. Obviously, this is way less organic than being in the moment-to-moment action, struggling to survive, then getting an urgent call to quickly run over to the other side of the mall. The structure of the game has gone from this free-flowing, take-it-or-leave-it style of questing to a very rigid, predetermined sequence of survivor missions. No longer does the main story expect you to be in a place at a certain time, potentially missing the plot of the game. Now you just check things off of a list, then the story continues. This makes the game feel way less Dead Rising, and I'm a little mixed on it, because while the original game's flow of player, cause, and effect storytelling makes DR as iconic as it is, I can't totally say I hate having more of a slowed down and focused Dead Rising experience either. As a longtime player of the first game, there was a lot of novelty seeing what familiar survivor quests came next, and how they'd be redesigned to accommodate all the new Wii styling. By the way, saving survivors is fairly easy now. They seem to run on Ashley's AI, 95% of the time sticking to Frank just as hard as his useless camera sticks to his hand. Since you're not stumbling into these desperate people dynamically, there's no saving multiple survivors or doing more than one mission at a time. The days of roaming the mall with a pack of scared individuals like a disgruntled teacher on a field trip are gone. The silver lining to this redesigned mission method is each of these events are pretty short and focused, so it's not like you'll be frustrated with a shitty survivor AI or things falling apart spectacularly. Each mission has a letter grade as well, and you even get cash and item rewards from Otis, which, by the way, this dude is fucking rich. He's given Frank like 30k a head for these survivors. You got something to tell the class, Odie? Cause you know what I always say, give a bitch a holla, throw a bitch a dollar. Why is he even working at this mall? What's really going on here? Another thing that's a little more strange than it is bad is the game's revised level design. Every single mall zone is smaller, either in their overall size or how the devs cleverly rope off certain paths. In the first area, Paradise Plaza, certain footpaths are blocked off or completely removed, forcing you to take one specific route every time you want to get across the room. This kind of thing would be fine if this was the only game called Dead Rising. But the problem here is the original game had you jumping, climbing, and free roaming to your heart's content. For someone who's played OG DR for hundreds of hours, this reduction in design stands out like a sore thumb. It takes some getting used to, but it's hard to ignore this whenever it pops up. I will say Leisure Park being the size of a playground is both hilarious and actually pretty great. No more jogging for what feels like ages to get across this giant field. Also, no convicts either, which is always a plus. Keep this statement in mind for later, okay? As silly as it is to buy things from a psycho killer with money you gather from fallen zombies, it's even dumber to pay someone to help you get around the mall. Yeah, this game also has fast travel. Once you save Greg from Adam the Clown, he of course opens up the famous shortcut from Wonderland to Paradise Plaza. But he can also teleport you to quest objectives for a little cashola. Wait, so this guy gives me the money, and this one takes it away? What kind of shady backroom mall racket do these dudes have going on? What's next, Greg? You gonna tell me you made the zombies? Jokes aside, I think this is amazing, but it does cut into your after mission letter grade. So if you want that precious S rank, you're gonna have to leg it. As we've seen with the merchant and fast travel systems, the game continues to surprise as you discover the all-new enemies, those being zombie poodles and parrots. It's just all Resident Evil enemy types. If your game has such precise motion aim, it makes sense to beef up enemy encounters to keep combat fresh and exciting. But making poor little Madonna the recurring enemy dog was not on my bingo card. The parrots will even drop grenades on Frank in the late game. Who set these little guys up to do this? If that wasn't crazy enough, this game also has special infected, who are literally Joe the cop, Kent the rival, and Cliff the Nom veteran. For those of you unaware, these were human boss characters in the original game. Making bosses into recurring zombies is insane, but I think I know what's going on here. Cliff, Joe, and Kent are all the most controversial characters in the original Dead Rising, two of which are sex pests in their own sick ways, and the third is a traumatized war veteran. The Nintendo Wii was more of a kid-friendly, family-orientated console, so I can see why Capcom might have thought to make these contentious villains villains into arcadey, recurring monsters, instead of sad or sick human threats. I don't see too much of a problem with these changes, since this is basically a whole new game that desperately needs a variety of enemies to keep the minute-to-minute combat fresh. This is like a normal game now. It's not this cool, weird, experimental, realistically timed experience like the original game. On the topic of boss changes, we gotta talk about the funniest one. Everyone who's played Dead Rising knows about the infamous convicts. These guys show up early and are insanely difficult for a brand new player. They make traversing Leisure Park a nightmare. If it wasn't hard enough taking them out, they respawn every few hours to ruin your day on repeat. I can already hear you asking, how the hell is the Wii version going to handle a threat this insurmountable? Well, Dead Rising Wii reimagines the convicts as a QuickTime event set piece. No, I am not making that up. Frank, with Sophie in hand, runs at the speed of light, making these clowns crash over and over again until they die. One of the most intense and memorable moments in any horror-adjacent game, boiled down to nothing more than a playable cutscene. Actually incredible. This is one of those moments where they shouldn't have been inspired by RE4 Wii. This is just Krauser, but way dumber and way funnier. Imagine riding around in your own car, Wii remote rail shooting against these guys. It could have been so cool. I think my favorite part about this port is its visuals. Yeah, I know, the game undeniably looks a lot better in its original form, but you know, if it looks like a colorful 4x3 PlayStation 2 game, I'm gonna love it. The lower fidelity visuals remind me of the mall from Silent Hill 3 when it's normal. I'm convinced if we ever got Dead Rising during the PS2 generation, it would look and play exactly like this port, minus the motion control, of course. One thing that absolutely sucks about DRW here is its pre-rendered cutscenes. No more funny outfits in the overly serious cutscenes. As soon as I laid eyes on the very first cutscene and saw the patented pre-rendered pixelation, I was disappointed. It kinda makes the entire clothing mechanic feel pointless now. Having your custom Frank show up in the story grounded the player in the reality of the game's world. Not having that aspect is yet another reduction to the Dead Rising identity. Almost all of the music returns besides the repurposed bosses not having their themes. For whatever reason, Brad's theme always plays when you're close to a survivor, making that particular track something you never ever want to hear again after the credits roll. All of the in-universe mall music is here, and I recently made a discovery that blew my mind. This song that always plays, I'm sure you've heard it. I used to think this was just Muzak gibberish, but after hearing it through really nice car speakers, yeah, the Dead Rising soundtrack is in frequent rotation in the Hunter family car. Don't judge. I was able to make out what the words are, and the woman in this song is literally saying, "You're loving me, but it always has been there." It's like an English version of "We were fated to fall in love." I don't know, I thought it was really cool. And that brings us to the story, and honestly, there's not much to be said. Chop Till You Drop has the exact same narrative as the original DR, and it's still as interesting as it was the first time I experienced it. You're still getting a very political and thrilling commentary on American consumption, wonderfully performed by all the same actors with its haunting conclusion left intact. Some small changes are present during key story moments, like when Carlito threatens to blow up the mall. You actually get to drive around in the underground tunnels and run over hundreds of zombies. Somehow they got the tunnels working, but couldn't make the convicts play like the original. It's funny because this scenario has loading screens for every single corner of the underground. Frank parks his car, you get out, then you can grab the bombs. You can't exit the vehicle in the main tunnel area, so the title literally transitions into a different game for a while. This kind of thing gets me hyped seeing just how far around the technical limitations the devs managed to get to deliver something that almost barely resembles the original game. I think it's genuinely really fun. When Carlito tries ramming Frank with his van, you can Initial D trickster dodge out of the way using this classic Fallen Angels cutting frames effect, and it looks amazing. When the US Special Forces show up to clear the place out, you still fight soldier enemies, but they're way easier to deal with and way less plentiful. By the way, Cletus is still here at the end of the game, which is batshit crazy. There's a third survivor at the end of Dead Rising Wii. Why does perfect Jesse have to die, but raspy-ass Cletus is still standing here like a cardboard cutout laughing as the mall gets seized? I don't know what anyone's talking about. This game is fantastic. During the Metal Gear Solid Jeep chase, you actually get to use motion aim to absolutely devastate the pursuing tank, which is super fun. In the final battle against Brock, they actually add in quick-time event melee attacks to, I'd assume, make the battle feel way less cheap than it does in the original game. That was always the one part of OG Dead Rising that sucked for me. It's worth mentioning that the recent deluxe remaster also adapted these QTE takedowns for its version of the final boss, which is actually incredible. By the end of the game, I was starting to get a little tired of taking the same paths over and over, killing similar enemies, only to do another cookie-cutter mission. Thankfully, like the original game, Dead Rising Wii is about 6 hours long, so right as the clock struck midnight and I was at my wit's end with this game, it ended. With all of the original game's mechanical depth and randomness in place, the repetition of repeating certain things like killing zombies, saving people, and fighting bosses doesn't really set in as obviously as it does here. When you strip back iconic series mechanics and force Dead Rising into a predestined mold, the cracks in the Dead Rising mechanical formula begin to show. I mean, things could have been a lot worse. The mold it's forcing itself into is RE4 Wii. Imagine if it was like, I don't know, GTA or something. My ultimate takeaway from playing Chop Till You Drop is that I'm now officially declaring this game a Resident Evil side game. Yeah, I said it, Dead Rising takes place in the RE universe now. You can't stop me. Listen, I'll be real with ya, I just really love Frank West as a character. If I'm playing a game with my favorite photojournalist in it, I'm gonna try my best to like the game. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but this time it did. Hey, just let me love PS2 Frank, okay? All in all, Dead Rising on the Wii is a fine little game, warts and all. What starts out as a genuinely interesting little novelty kind of overstays its welcome. Even though a lot of what makes Dead Rising special isn't present in this port, I kinda love it for what it tries to do to make up for it. Around the time of this game's release, we would actually see quite a few of these types of ports. Splinter Cell Double Agent had like 2 or 3 different versions that are essentially all different games depending on the console you played it on. Recently, I played Star Wars Force Unleashed on Xbox 360, and then found out that there was a vastly better version of it on the PS2 and Wii with a more fleshed out story and arguably better gameplay mechanics. Can you imagine if this kind of game design was still happening now? What's the closest thing we get now? The recent Resident Evil games on iPhone? Shh, none of those hold a candle to Dead Rising on the iPhone. Nah, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.